That supposedly extraordinary night turned out to be quite ordinary. I found myself among others at Victor and Zainab's modest apartment, filled with mismatched furniture and the lingering aroma of overcooked samosas. The living room was an assortment of cheap beanbags and worn couch cushions serving as makeshift chairs. It was one of those game nights where the rules took a back seat, and the competitive spirit in everyone was too strong to admit indifference towards the winner. Victor had invited me earlier in the week. Bro, it's game night. Bring your sarcasm. He knew I usually ran on that default setting. I'd recently secured the lead engineering position at Brightlayer Systems, my first significant success, and the rush of adrenaline was still very much present. I felt on the brink of something momentous. After 2 years of relentless work, coding lines as if they were my future's lifeblood, that night was meant to be a respite from all the hustle. Upon entering, Selina was present, her laughter bouncing around the room like an unnoticed melody. Sitting on an aged ottoman, she waved a card from an unknown game at Zainab, who was bent over in giggles. Selina's hair was pulled back into a gravity-defying ponytail, and her eyes shimmered with a familiar confidence that made it feel as if I had met her before, despite never having done so. It wasn't an instant love connection that's too simple, too convenient, too romantic to be authentic. Instead, I sensed a recognition, as if I had rediscovered a missing fragment I didn't realize was lost. She looked up from across the room, still laughing, and a quiet sense of contentment washed over me. Not the kind caused by falling in love, but one that suggested understanding. She tilted her head slightly and offered a warm smile that wasn't hesitant or coy, simply inviting, as if she had been anticipating my arrival. Victor drew me into a charades game, and it turned out Selina was my partner by some odd turn of events. She moved swiftly, almost eerily so, and every guess I made, she seemed to anticipate before the words left my lips. We emerged victorious, naturally. We slapped hands and beamed at each other as if we'd just completed a marathon together. Subsequently, we wound up in the kitchen, partially propped against the counter, partially rummaging in the fridge, trying to locate the remaining cold beers before Victor could snatch them all. "Idris, isn't that right?" she said, her voice as smooth as if she had rehearsed my name. "Yes," I answered, the word catching in my throat a bit. "Nice to officially meet you. Victor raves about you like you're some sort of sorcerer." She teased, eye-rolling, but with a tenderness that suggested she was paying attention. More like a sorcerer's apprentice, I chuckled. "I'm still learning the ropes." She grinned back. "A modest sorcerer." I shared with her details about my role at Brightlayer, explaining my recent promotion and the new project I'm managing. She seemed genuinely interested, nodding along and asking thoughtful questions that made me feel valued. She spoke about her line of work and corporate communications, admitting that maintaining a serious demeanor during board meetings could be challenging. The evening was filled with laughter, games, and conversations that felt effortless. Whenever I glanced around, she was either engaged with others or gazing at me. We seemed to be revolving around the same source of light. By the time guests were collecting their belongings and expressing gratitude towards Victor and Zainab, Selina and I were standing close by the wall, our limbs inadvertently touching like magnets. She requested a ride to her car, and I obliged. The evening air held a cool Nairobi scent, hinting of rain despite clear skies. We ambled at an easy pace, neither of us eager to reach our destination. "May I share something?" she asked as we neared her vehicle, an old Toyota teeming with character rather than shine. "Go ahead," I replied. Her eyes became serious for the first time that night. "You're unique, and I can't quite explain it, but it feels like I've known you for a while." The words remained stuck in my throat, thick as honey. Instead, I responded, "Me too." She leaned to kiss me lightly on the cheek, her lips leaving a soft, warm tingle that sent shivers down my back. "Good night, Idris," she murmured. I stood there long after her car had vanished, tail lights flickering like tiny red pledges in the dark. The scent of her perfume lingered, her laughter still echoing in my ears. That night, sleep eluded me at home. I repeatedly revisited our dialogues, her beaming grin, the way she seemed to acknowledge my significance from the outset. Among all the individuals I've encountered, None had ever made me feel recognized in quite the same manner. At that point, I was unaware of the extent to which I would be willing to preserve that sensation. Unaware of the countless times I'd hold my breath, eager for her to laugh as she did before, and the numerous nights I'd spend sleepless, questioning if our connection was merely a figment of my imagination. Yet, on that particular night, ensconced in my small apartment with the city symphony playing outside, I allowed myself to entertain the notion that I'd discovered an enduring bond. For a while, it sufficed. We crafted a lifestyle that elicited envy from others. When they inquired about our well-being at social gatherings, "How do you find Riverside Heights?" They were referring to the secure neighborhood with its immaculate gardens and the scent of fresh paint wafting from every dwelling, the streets that seemed to have been vacuumed before dawn. After our wedding, we decided to settle into a place where Selena could feel safe and show off to her friends. Without hesitation, I provided that for her since I was flourishing at Brightlayer, heading a project that made me feel like I had finally caught up with the world. When she indicated the glossy brochure of the townhouse, I simply replied, "Let's go for it. It's ours now." She selected the delicate curtains with tiny blue dots that captured morning light perfectly, although I thought they were too fragile for the modern design of the house. We quarreled over the couch color. She preferred a sleek gray hue, while I wanted something cozy and welcoming. In the end, she prevailed, as she often did, with her smile that made me believe compromise was an expression of love. The car idea was my own, having saved some extra money from a bonus, which eventually vanished like smoke. I desired to surprise her with a stylish electric sedan, freshly parked in our driveway. I recall her expression as I unlocked the car, keys clutched tightly. The vehicle seemed like a priceless treasure in a realm she thought I'd sworn to protect. She wrapped her arms around me, murmuring, "Idris, you're amazing," and I was convinced. That evening, she uploaded images of the car on Instagram, using tags like #blessed and #biscarventure. I felt a sense of satisfaction, possibly excessive. I thought I was constructing something genuine, a bastion against the turmoil of life's complexities. However, I failed to notice the fissures in our foundation. Selena excelled at deception. The appropriate footwear, the perfect lipstick, the apt captions. I observed her transform every meal into a photoshoot, every weekend into an exhibition of our seemingly flawless life. The Bali trip marked the zenith of this false reality. For months, she had spoken about it, showing me influencers who visited there, sipping from coconuts with straws and posing by infinity pools. "It's our long-awaited honeymoon," she said, and I yearned to grant that dream to her. Yearned to be the spouse who affirmed wholeheartedly. Thus, I arranged for a 5-day stay at an ocean view villa, where staff recognized us even before our plane landed. We posed for pictures on the beach, watched sunsets with her leaning on my shoulder. It seemed like paradise, yet it felt tainted when I noticed she spent more time selecting filters than conversing with me genuinely. She'd publish photos accompanied by captions such as "Forever Us," and I'd trust it because I desired to. However, every post of hers made me question if our life was truly ours, or merely a tale she spun for the world. My profession facilitated this lifestyle effortlessly, providing the salary, perks, and bonuses. Obsessed with coding and team management, I rarely contemplated the undercurrents lurking beneath it all. I believed we were cultivating our future. However, I began to wonder if it was simply a narrative she shared with the world. Initially, I believed our funds were earmarked for our future goals: children, travel, and retirement. However, Selena seemed to prioritize the present, focusing on the aesthetic aspects of life. Each new purchase or gift appeared as another coat of shine on the lifestyle she aimed to impress the world with. Perhaps I failed to recognize it initially, or perhaps I chose not to. Raised in a family that seldom discussed finances unless for counting or reminding each other of its scarcity, I found myself effortlessly giving her what she wanted, be it a new phone or a bag. I neglected to ponder the implications, the message conveyed about our relationship. I thought love meant unconditional agreement. Yet, when bonuses ceased and the company began cutting costs, hinting at potential acquisition, I attempted to discuss our spending habits with her. I suggested we might need to moderate our pace, focus on necessities. She refused to listen, reassuring me with a forced smile that didn't touch her eyes. "We'll be fine." "You're brilliant, Idris." She stated it as if it were an undeniable truth, as if she had made a decision for me, and I desired to trust her. Yet, whenever I examined the finances, whenever I observed the figures decrease, I felt like I was witnessing our life disintegrate, piece by piece. Still, I persisted in giving. I persisted in spending. I persisted in constructing the facade because I didn't know how to cease. I thought maybe if I just worked harder, everything would even out. I believed love was sacrifice, and I was prepared to sacrifice everything. But the day the bonuses vanished, I saw it in her eyes. Not fear, not concern, disappointment, as if she had been on a horse that stumbled at the finish line, as if I had let her down by not being the man she thought she had married. I'd always believed love was constructing something together, something robust enough to withstand the world. But that night, as I sat in the dark living room while she browsed through photos from Bali, I understood she had been constructing something else. A collection of pictures, a series of seemingly flawless moments. She uploaded one final image that evening, us on the Bali beach, with arms around each other, grinning as if the world belonged to us. The comment was, "Love is everything." I gazed at that picture for quite some time, questioning whom she was smiling towards. It wasn't me. When the bonuses vanished like an apparition from the accounts, it felt as though the ground had been taken away. Yet I didn't tremble, not in the manner Selena anticipated. I'd been with Brightlayer for quite a while by then, and I understood the company's behavior when times were tough. There were too many meetings involving department heads, emails filled with excessive warnings. However, I was aware of my assets. Nimbus Sync wasn't merely another protocol, it was mine. I had invested countless nights perfecting its encryption features, sometimes on company time, often beyond standard work hours. Brightlayer's IP policy allowed developers to retain certain rights on their work, provided they meticulously documented their process. I did just that, marking each line of code with a date and annotating every module in my repository. My personal storage, distinct from company servers, was impenetrable. Some may view it as excessive caution, but I saw it as protection. Nimbus Sync served as my escape route from the loop of bonuses and corporate machinations. I recognized its worth, its security, data management capabilities, and ability to smoothly integrate legacy systems with contemporary frameworks. The CTO himself had confided off record, "Leave. If this succeeds, it could be our next trillion-dollar product." Selena showed no interest, neither in Nimbus nor the countless hours I invested coding, while the blinds were drawn and my coffee grew cold beside me. All she focused on was the present moment. With our refrigerator depleting, declined invitations, and canceled parties due to my excessive work hours, all invested in something invisible to her, neither tangible nor boast-worthy according to her perspective. One evening, after she returned from dinner with friends, eyes gleaming with laughter and wine, I attempted to convey my feelings. "Selena," I said, "Nimbus Sync isn't merely a side endeavor. If it succeeds, it could transform everything." She raised an eyebrow, her signature expression of both amusement and disapproval. "Profitable Idris," she spat out, as if the words were sour, "perpetually waiting for a breakthrough, while our fridge remains barren and our journeys are made without us." Her voice held a scorn I hadn't heard before. I prepared to counter her argument, but hesitated, realizing there was nothing I could say to someone indifferent to ambition and sacrifice, only focused on the present moment. It wasn't as if I had neglected her. I'd provided her with the townhouse, the car, the travels. In her eyes, I provided the life she desired, yet I often felt like a phantom within our dwelling. She lacked comprehension for the virtue of nurturing growth, desiring immediate results instead of seeds. Her scorn was directed at my patience and faith in the future's potential. She derided me as Prophet Idris, implying it was a slur, viewing optimism as a foolish pursuit. Yet I persisted with it. Even in childhood, this was my nature, clinging to thoughts long after others abandoned them. It was both my affliction and my redemption. At night, when all was quiet, I'd sit at my desk, the screen's light illuminating my features, and visualized the day Nimbus Sync transcended lines of code. I envisioned its deployment in the world, transforming data transfer for corporations, enhancing safety, speed, and efficiency. I imagined their reactions upon discovering what I had crafted. However, Selena's laughter reverberated through the hallway from the living room. Excluding me from their laughter, she talked on the phone with Maya, possibly discussing dinner plans or the newest influencer collaboration. In those instances, I would ponder if she ever truly believed in me, or if I was merely another symbol of her status. At a family gathering, Brian, her younger brother, cautiously took me aside and confided, "Dude, she's not who she used to be." Unsure of what to respond, I began to agree with him. I attempted to share my dreams with her, but every time I tried to express the potential, the worth, the design, her gaze would cloud as if I were speaking a foreign language. One evening, I worked late at the office, refining a new security feature for Nimbus Sync to make it even more secure. I informed her I'd be home late. No response. Upon returning home, the house was dim, the dining table vacant, her car absent. I phoned her, only to be greeted by voicemail. I waited. The hands of the clock moved past midnight, ticking like a reproach in the stillness. She arrived home at dawn. I heard the garage door squeak open. She didn't utter a word. Instead, she tiptoed past me in the living room where I had dozed off on the couch. She avoided eye contact. I never asked where she had been. I didn't desire the truth. After that, conversations about Nimbus Sync ceased. Discussions about the future ended. I stopped talking altogether. I became unseen by her unless I was failing her expectations. At work, I kept a low profile, meticulously recording every detail, every modification, every alteration. I worked overtime. I worked on weekends. I invested all my energy into Nimbus, as it was the only thing that still felt like mine. In the few instances we spoke, our conversations were shallow, revolving around groceries, bills, and household chores. The connection between us had chilled, replaced by a silent animosity that lingered like mold on the walls. When I looked at her, I saw the woman from our game night, the one who laughed genuinely, the one who made me feel valuable. But often, I saw a stranger. I questioned if she felt the same way about me. So, as I usually did when everything seemed to be unraveling, I concentrated on what I could manage. I fixed my attention on Nimbus Sync. I created something she couldn't reach, claim, or demean. In the tranquil hours before dawn, when the world lay still, I consoled myself with the thought that sometimes the best retaliation is endurance. Her silence was the most audible thing I'd ever heard in the way she passed me by in the morning, a cursory glance at her phone instead of a greeting, in the suppers we no longer shared, the too large, too empty kitchen table. For years, I believed love was a continual dialogue, a common tongue that fortified us amidst tempests. Yet with Selena, it was her choice of eloquent silence. I spoke, she nodded, and my words seemed to vanish between us, unheard and without resonance. The night she returned at dawn shattered the fragile peace I'd nurtured for so long. I sat on the couch, half watching the glow of streetlights outside and a clock that refused to decelerate. Midnight passed, then more hours. I pondered the possible reasons behind her tardiness: a flat tire, a dead phone, or an urgent friend. Generally, I was lenient, but that night doubts began to stir, questions I couldn't find answers for. When she eventually entered at sunrise, her heels clicked against the floor as if leveling accusations. She didn't even glance my way. Instead, she strode towards the bedroom, as if I were invisible. I remained still, unmoving, and chose not to inquire. I didn't wish to listen to the fabrications she would recite or the fury she would unleash if I challenged her. Instead, I remained seated in the silence of a dwelling that resembled a mausoleum for a marriage long deceased, while I was engrossed in work. That week, Brian reached out to me. His younger sibling, though no longer small, was one of the few individuals who had always seen through me when Selena did not. We convened at a cafe downtown, characterized by mismatched cups and chalkboard menus. He appeared older than our previous encounter, lines of concern etched around his eyes. "Mate," he murmured, stirring his coffee until the froth dissipated, "she's no longer the person she once was." I simply nodded, as I had also observed this change. He seemed hesitant, searching for the correct words. She behaves differently with you. More distant. I can't fathom what transpired, but she has transformed. I could have disclosed that I had sensed that alteration for months, that each day with her felt like trying to grasp water in my hands. Instead of speaking further, I merely gazed at the whirl in my cup, which was black. I appreciate you informing me, I eventually said. It's very significant. After that, our conversation dwindled. He settled his coffee bill, gave me a pat on the shoulder, and advised, hang tough. I did, persisting like someone anticipating a sign that never materialized. I ceased bringing up Nimbus Sync, stopped discussing the patent, the potential. Whenever she inquired about work, I provided brief, monotonous replies, just a word or two. She showed no concern. The silence between us grew, enveloping me as a second layer of skin. On certain nights, I'd lie in bed under her phone's soft glow, contemplating what she saw on the screen that she didn't see in me. I pondered whether she envisioned a life devoid of me, where someone else occupied my space. I'd shut my eyes and recall the game night when we met. The sensation of her laughter felt like a pledge then. I'd reminisce about our past mornings in that compact flat, coffee cups arranged soldier-like, her voice echoing a melody I never knew the lyrics to. In retrospect, I believed we were constructing something authentic. However, what we had created was an edifice for appearances. A dwelling with a charming exterior, but devoid of substance within. A vehicle that gleamed but led us nowhere. I became a phantom in my own marriage. The change was palpable even at work. Project Nimbus Sync, at least technically, was complete. It functioned efficiently, a tool capable of revolutionizing Brightlayer's data management. Yet, every time the idea of sharing this with Selena crossed my mind, her taunting tone filled my ears as she sarcastically called me Prophet Idris. I could picture her eye roll, the smirk that said, "Another one of your visions." Consequently, I chose silence. I meticulously documented everything, each late-night coding session, every test case, every feature. I ensured nobody could steal it from me, neither Brightlayer nor Selena, not even Destiny itself. In this silence, I discovered a lucidity that had eluded me for years. With her voice no longer overwhelming mine, I recollected the reason I initiated Nimbus in the first place. I recalled the fire within me that made me trust the improbable. One night, I lingered at the office after everyone else had departed. The city was a tapestry of lights and distant traffic hum, the ever-elusive murmur of potential. I retrieved the final module, my crowning achievement. It felt like signing my name on a canvas I'd been painting for years. I leaned back, hands behind my head, and released a breath I didn't know I was holding. In that instant, I wasn't Prophet Idris or her unwanted husband. I was simply myself, and that sufficed. Upon returning home that night, she lay asleep on the couch, an empty wine glass by the coffee table. Her phone still clutched in her hand, its screen illuminated with unfinished messages. Standing there, I observed her breathing, pondering if she'd ever truly comprehend me. I switched off the light and retired alone to my bed. In the ensuing quiet, I rediscovered my voice. With this voice came a resolution. I wouldn't wait for her return, nor pursue her laughter or approval. I was no longer a specter. Though unsure of its implications or destination, I felt grounded for the first time in a long while. I vowed that whatever path lay ahead, I'd tread it independently on my own 2 feet. The day I brought home the severance notice felt like the day the world finally yanked away support beneath me. I had anticipated it. High Layers acquisition had reduced departments to ashes, consuming colleagues like a fire devouring dry wood, box in hand, one by one. I had endured longer than many others due to being established, or perhaps because the complexities of Nimbus Sync deterred others from dealing with it. However, that day, my supervisor summoned me into a transparent office, resembling a fishbowl. He avoided looking at me as he pushed an envelope towards me on the table. "Idris," he said, "it's not personal." His words seemed rehearsed, like they had been spoken several times that day. I took the envelope, a white, weighty rectangle. "It's never personal," I replied, maintaining my composure. I had also rehearsed this conversation. I didn't bid farewell to anyone. I exited the building with my head held high and heart feeling low. Nimbus Sync remained secure, I ensured that much. Yet, the position was lost, the team disbanded, and the perceived safety net I had crafted for Selena also vanished. Driving home in silence, the city lights streaked past me through the windshield, while my mind rehearsed how to break the news to her. Upon entering, I found her in the kitchen, engrossed in her phone, appearing as if anticipating favorable news. Her hair was styled elegantly, lips expertly adorned, suggesting a recent dinner with an influential figure. "Hi," I uttered, my voice faltering slightly. I displayed the letter. They'd terminated me. She didn't flinch. Not a glance. A subtle, malicious smile spread across her face, a smile I'd never witnessed before, and she emitted a brief, biting laugh that seemed to cleave the air in two. "Naturally," she responded, discarding her phone onto the counter. "I've always known you'd wind up like this. You're not cut out for the major leagues, Idris." It was as if she'd been biding her time for this moment, as if every feigned smile and courteous nod had been a lead-up to this revelation. My hands quivered as I placed the envelope on the table, but I remained silent. I'd prepared myself for a confrontation, for tears, for something genuine. But she offered me a laugh instead, a sound that tasted of betrayal and release all at once. Stride by her, directly to the bedroom, closing the door behind me. Her humming an unfamiliar tune in the kitchen, uncorking a bottle of wine, made it seem as if I was a phantom in my own house, a specter she had discarded. That night, I lay restless in darkness, ceaselessly gazing at the ceiling, every breath burdened by an unavoidable truth I could not ignore. She hadn't merely given up on me, she had been anticipating my fall. The dinners she smiled through, the photographs she posed for, the compliments she offered when funds were plentiful, none of it was genuine. It was a show, a part she played until the stage crumbled. And as I came to understand in the stillness of the house, save for her laughter resounding in my mind, I'd spent years constructing a life for someone who desired the applause, not the man behind the scenes. Mercy arrived with dawn. Before she stirred, I rose and navigated the house mechanically, each room feeling like an unfamiliar dwelling. Upon reaching the kitchen table, the divorce documents were waiting, tidily arranged, with a pen perched atop like an open invitation. She had left them out for me, devoid of any note or clarification, merely a signature line adorned with her signature looping, self-assured script a testament to decisions already made. I seated myself and gazed at the papers. Each word seemed to strike like a blow. She desired everything: home, vehicle, alimony, quantifying my value in a neat tableau. For an instant, I yearned for a battle. I longed to shout at her, to recall every sacrifice, every sleepless night, every reward sacrificed for her aspirations. Yet, a memory surfaced the expression on her face when I informed her of job loss, the relief, the contentment, and I realized that words would be futile. Thus, I inhaled deeply. I took up the pen and signed. However, I appended one provision: no future financial claims. A barrier sealed, a path she could never traverse again. She scribbled her name without scrutinizing the fine print, flashing a triumphant grin. I observed as she gathered her belongings, catching her amused glance at the articles I had reluctantly purchased earlier, admiring herself in the hallway mirror prior to departing. She never turned around. She didn't have to. The dwelling felt expansive without her presence. Each chamber reverberated with the void she left behind. I traversed its corridors, tracing my fingers along the walls, furniture, and framed images of a past that was not mine to preserve. I wasn't enraged. I wasn't sorrowful. I was something indescribable, something I couldn't define initially. Then it struck me. Liberated. I was liberated. The residence, the vehicle, the alimony, she could have it all. I didn't require it. I owned the Nimbus Sync, the one thing she had never fathomed, never wished to comprehend. I had my occupation, my algorithms, my evidence demonstrating that I was not destined for the upper echelons. I was the upper echelons. She had scoffed at my stumbles. She had departed believing she had triumphed. She wasn't aware that sometimes the most effective retaliation isn't triumphing. It's departing with dignity and heart intact. I found myself in the center of a vacant living room, shutting my eyes. I allowed her to either laugh or disappear into the horizon. Upon opening them again, I was solitary. Yet, I was something more. I was sufficient. I exited her realm silently. There were no farewell words, no social media updates, no calls to common friends clarifying my perspective. I merely collected my essentials laptop, notebooks, hard drives, and patents and departed. It was the most straightforward act I'd ever performed, and it was also the most challenging. The day I completed the final paperwork, he was already displaying a new life online. Terk was his name, unworthy of even a surname. He was the type of man who posed with rented vehicles and inexpensive timepieces, feeding an audience who consumed every crafted falsehood he peddled. She was now with him. Grinning at an influencer gathering, he displayed a new ring where an older one once sat, likely beyond his means. I had seen such scenes before, dazzling on the surface, void within. Initially, I thought my affection, labor, and commitment could fill that emptiness in her. However, I realized that constructing a future with someone perpetually pursuing validation is futile. Hence, I relinquished it. The house, the vehicle, the appearance of success, all were mine for the giving. What I did not provide was the one thing she'd never comprehend, Nimbus Sync. As she posed alongside Terk, I kept a low profile. I engaged a discreet, formidable attorney proficient in IP protection and trust funds. Together, we crafted the transaction so complex that even the most relentless predators would pause. Once Brightlayer's new administrators unearthed Nimbus Sync within their archives, it was as if they stumbled upon buried treasure under a parking lot. They had suffered significant developer and project losses due to acquisition, leaving them in need of demonstrating their innovation hadn't waned. Before contacting me, they reached out to my lawyer first. A professional yet tense email was sent. "We'd like to discuss Nimbus Sync." The message was strictly business, but the underlying desperation was palpable. My quiet, meticulous lawyer, known for his mind like a steel trap, negotiated with the precision of a grandmaster chess player. Every detail, from clauses to share structures to licensing terms, was examined, rewritten, and reassessed. In the end, Brightlayer proposed $80 million. After accounting for taxes, structuring, and legalities, the final figure was $67 million. Kamau Innovations Limited, a trust-owned LLC registered offshore with multiple protective layers, was established that day to ensure no personal funds were involved and no claim could be made by a vindictive ex-spouse. It wasn't solely about the wealth. It was about the integrity. It was about validating that my efforts, my ideas, my perspiration, and my sleepless hours held significance. That they were mine. That no one could simply seize them due to a friendly gesture. I recall the day the funds deposited into the trust. I was ensconced in a modest coffee shop near my lawyer's office, a solitary bulb above the table casting a cozy illumination on the documents. My lawyer pushed the last papers toward me and said, "Congratulations, Mr. Kamau. You're now a wealthy man officially." I didn't feel wealthy. I felt resolved. I pondered phoning her, merely to inform her, merely to savor the quiet on the other line. But I didn't. Some triumphs are more powerful when unspoken. Instead, I exited that coffee shop into the vibrant afternoon sunshine. The city seemed altered, as if I was finally traversing it according to my rules. No illusions, no deception, no masquerading. I was liberated in a manner I'd never been before. Selena and Tarek remained unaware. They lived their carefully crafted online lives, complete with hashtags, fabricated smiles, and narratives beginning with, "I've always believed in you," even when they didn't. Allow them their empire of reflections. I created something genuine, something enduring. Occasionally, late at night, I would browse through her new existence, the pictures of rooftop soirees, of imported wines, and meticulously arranged selfies. I would ponder if she missed how I looked at her, as if she were the only one in the room. If she missed the security of someone who always put her first. But then I'd shut off my phone, lean back, and remind myself that the only thing worthy of missing was the man I had been before I met her. The man who believed love could overcome everything, even someone who never loved me in return. I became him again, yet stronger, wiser, perhaps a tad colder, and the day the funds were deposited, I went to a peaceful restaurant I once adored. No prior booking. Alone at a table, no spectators, just me and a meal reminiscent of home. I toasted myself in solitude. To each moment spent constructing Nimbus Sync, to every sleepless night waiting for her return, to every jest she tossed my way, thinking it would shatter me. It didn't. In that eatery, I pledged to myself. I vowed never again to let another person dictate my worth. I swore never to allow someone else's approval to set the value of my labor or my emotions. That night, I realized that freedom isn't about escaping. It's about departing without a glance back. The next day, I ventured to Kamau Innovations Limited, my office, a humble two-room suite and shared workspace downtown. No extravagant signage, no glass enclosures, no recreational ping-pong tables. Just a desk, a whiteboard, and a dream. I assembled a modest team, bright minds eager to take risks. We weren't crafting for likes or popularity. We were creating for those in need of our innovations. Occasionally, I reflect on that particular day, the day when I comprehended I no longer required her validation. All I needed was myself, and it sufficed. 3 months later, an email from her legal representative landed in my inbox like a bullet. It arrived during a Tuesday morning code review with Maya, my junior developer who had an uncanny knack for detecting unnoticed errors. The subject line was straightforward, coldly clinical. Asset Disclosure Inquiry, Miss Selena Mwangi. I opened it and read the first sentence. We suspect Mr. Kamau failed to declare substantial assets during divorce proceedings and therefore request a thorough investigation of the marital estate. I leaned back in my chair, letting the words permeate me. It wasn't shock. I had been anticipating this since the day she signed the papers with a self-satisfied grin. She believed she had triumphed, but greed never ceases at one triumph. It always craves more. I contacted my lawyer. His voice was composed, level. Mr. Kamau, this is a typical post-divorce asset investigation. We will respond officially, but let's discuss the specifics in detail. I took a deliberate breath, pushing aside her previous laughter that lingered in my mind. This time, it would be different. We arranged a meeting for that afternoon. Upon arrival, I found the conference room filled with the lingering odor of old coffee. My attorney placed the letter on the table and slid it towards me. She claims you concealed assets during the marriage, he explained. More specifically, she seeks a share of any post-divorce financial gains. I chuckled, more out of disbelief than amusement. She believes she can draw from the well whenever she desires, I replied. He acknowledged my statement with a nod. She is attempting to do so. However, here's the crucial point. Kamau the patent was sold following the divorce. Although you developed it during the marriage, you maintained private ownership of the IP rights and only sold them afterward. Legally, it's no longer marital property. Turning to the divorce settlement, he opened the document she had confidently signed. That sealed clause prohibits any future financial demands, he reminded her. I recall it vividly. You were so eager to finish that you didn't carefully read it. Your lawyer, a junior partner more preoccupied with his next case, merely glanced over it and said, "It looks fine." My legal representative proceeded, "Are you following the lines of this settlement like a map? The judge will recognize this as an unfounded claim. Will file a motion to dismiss." I pondered her image, eyes shining as she signed those papers, laughter lingering as I departed. She believed she had triumphed, broken me. But you can't break what you don't comprehend. The court date was scheduled for 2 weeks hence. Entering the courtroom in my best suit, the one I wore when Breitlier handed me my termination notice, I prepared to present my case. I wished for her to glimpse that suit and recall that specific day when she'd chuckled at me. That day she found me amusing. Sitting opposite me, accompanied by her attorney, a tall, slim man reminiscent of a reality show contestant, she didn't return my grin this time. Perhaps she was coming to terms with the fact that her ploys no longer swayed me. The judge, a stern woman whose stare could turn a desert cold, leafed through the file with expertise. She read out the section Selina had signed aloud. Her voice echoed like a surgeon's tool. "You waived any future claims, Miss Mwangi," she stated. "That encompasses sudden wealth." Selina squirmed in her chair. Her lawyer attempted to mend the situation. "Your Honor, there must be a reasonable debate that Mr. Kamau's invention originated during the marital period." The judge halted him with an upward gesture. "Lawyer, I stress, the property at issue was disposed of following the divorce. The intellectual property rights were unambiguously classified as separate assets." Selina's composure faltered as she realized her argument held no weight. The judge addressed me. "Mr. Kamau, would you like to respond?" I remained calm and silent, allowing the facts to serve as my rebuttal. The judge dismissed the case, ordering Selina to pay my legal fees totaling 14 million Nigerian nairas. Shock filled her eyes, and her lawyer gaped in disbelief. This outcome was not part of their plan. Leaving the courtroom, I felt a sense of relief that hadn't graced me in years. It wasn't about the money, but rather the confirmation that all my efforts were justified. As I passed Selina in the hallway, I knew that every bill I owed would be covered. Without giving her a chance to speak, I moved on. Her attempts at explanations, apologies, and tears meant nothing to me. I simply walked away. The sun outside seemed too radiant, as if the world was ridiculing me with its cheerfulness. Yet, I wasn't bitter. I was liberated. Upon returning home that evening, I poured myself a drink of whiskey. From my balcony, I watched the city lights twinkle like stars in a constellation. I reminisced about the boy I was when I met her, the man I became while loving her, and the man I am now. She aimed to relegate me to an insignificant chapter in her tale, a discarded spouse, a forgotten chapter. However, I had penned my own finale, one where I didn't require her endorsement, affirmation, or acclaim. The following morning, I received an email from my lawyer. "Money has been transferred." His words read, "Congratulations on your hard-fought victory." My gaze lingered on the screen, my image barely visible in the glass. For the first occasion in a while, I encountered a man who wasn't shaped by another's derision or fabrications. I was myself, and that sufficed. I could have departed at that moment, discarded the soil from my feet, and let Selina indulge in her influencer gatherings and late-night wine updates. However, the lawsuit she instigated breached every clause of the contract she'd agreed to so enthusiastically. She attempted to alter the narrative of our tale with yet another legal maneuver, yet another act of desperation. Not out of vengeance, at least, that was my justification. It wasn't about the money, though 14 million Nigerian nairas in court costs would undoubtedly make her reconsider labeling me Prophet Idris again. It was about the integrity. You can't torch the bridge and then sue the builder. The following morning, I met with my attorney. His office, a compact glass-walled locale in downtown, adorned with books and accolades such as Professional Excellence and Best of Nairobi Law, housed our meeting. He moved a substantial pile of papers toward me, each page brimming with the gravitas of my choice. "Are you absolutely certain about this, Idris?" he inquired, his gaze seeking any trace of uncertainty in mine. "This action won't garner her affection." I emitted a quiet chuckle, one that seemed to originate from a deep-seated source, like an untouched well. "I no longer seek her approval. I merely want the record corrected." He gave a measured nod. "Very well, then. We'll submit for legal compensation and reimbursement of fees, along with a formal statement asserting she breached the initial contract by filing a groundless claim." I signed the papers decisively, each pen stroke offering a sense of resolution. A month hence, the case was slated for proceedings. Courtrooms have always evoked a sense of chilliness for me. They are sterile and impersonal. The air seems too stagnant. However, this occasion felt like a battlefield I had chosen. I was seated on the left side of the room, my attorney next to me, his tie immaculate, his notes neatly arranged like a general's tactical plans. On the opposite side sat Selina and her lawyer, a new face, this time younger, with a look of desperation in his eyes that suggested she had exhausted all her options. As the judge entered, I stood tall. The same judge from the previous hearing, her gaze as keen, her patience more strained. She didn't require any reminders that we had been through this before. My attorney began first, presenting the facts with the precision of a surgeon. "Your Honor," he said, "Miss Mwangi breached the divorce agreement by filing a baseless lawsuit. The lawyer for the other side requests reimbursement of legal expenses along with compensation for breach of contract." As Selena's attorney attempted to speak, the judge silenced him with a glance. "Counsel," the judge said, having reviewed the file. The clause was clear. She signed it. She cannot now claim she didn't comprehend the agreement. Selena looked at the judge with a mix of anger and disbelief. The judge remained composed. I wanted Selena to see that the man she had dismissed as too patient, too trusting, too slow to fight had learned. I was no longer the man who sat silent at the kitchen table while she plotted her next move. The judge continued, her voice resolute. "Mr. Kamau's claim for legal costs is legitimate. The court awards 14 million Nigerian nairas in damages to Mr. Kamau. Miss Mwangi is ordered to pay this sum within 60 days. I didn't show satisfaction or triumph. I merely breathed, savoring what felt like the first genuine breath since she had mocked me in our kitchen. When the meeting concluded, I rose and collected my belongings. Selena's attorney leaned towards her, speaking urgently. She seemed as though she wished to convey something to me, an apology, a plea, a cry. I gave her no response. I turned and departed. Outside, the atmosphere was warm and heavy with the aroma of impending rain. I inclined my head back and allowed the sky to envelop me, feeling each drop as a baptism. A man reborn, not out of grace, but by choice. I could have left it at that. I could have allowed the funds to flow in and out, enabling her to bear the burden of her greed. Yet, something within me craved the last word. Something desired to conclude the chapter on my terms. So, I penned her a letter. Not an electronic message, but an actual letter, with paper that faintly carried the scent of cedar from its drawer. I settled at my desk late one night, as city lights adorned my walls with hues of gold and shadow, and I allowed the words to flow. "Selena," I penned, "thank you for choosing to depart. In your acrimony, I could not accomplish any of this. It resonated discordantly throughout my endeavor. Your silence proved more invaluable than any support you ever offered. May you find as much happiness as possible in a world that acknowledges you only through your posts. However, my world has shifted. My world now stands on authenticity, programming, meaningful labor, and relationships that recognize me for who I am rather than what I can provide. All that remains between us is this letter. I do not require a response, forgiveness, or resolution. I have obtained all the resolution I needed when you departed. Take care." As I finished folding it meticulously, I placed the letter in an envelope and handed it to her lawyer's receptionist. She would receive it, she would read it, she would understand. 3 days later, my phone rang. Her name appearing on the screen brought a constriction to my chest, but I did not reveal it. I answered, voice calm. "Idris," she said. Her voice was gentle, tentative, a tone I had not heard since our late-night conversations. She admitted her error, gasping for breath. "Can we discuss it?" For a brief moment, I allowed the quiet to linger between us. My mind wandered back to the countless nights I'd spent waiting for her return and mornings where she greeted a screen instead of me. I recalled every instance when she called me Prophet Idris, each time she mocked the man I was. I released a measured breath. "I'm not angry with you, Selena," I stated, "but I've lost my curiosity as well. Some bridges remain in ruins for a purpose." She began to respond, but I disconnected the call. Placing the phone aside, I surveyed my modest office, a space I'd constructed from the remnants of a marriage that had almost broken me. My team was still out there, laboring past dusk, pursuing aspirations with the same fervor that once fueled my pursuit of hers. It was then that I recognized the most rewarding aspect of this journey wasn't the wealth or courtroom triumph. It was rediscovering my voice, a voice no longer seeking her validation. The voice affirming my value wasn't dependent on anyone else's perspective. That evening, I secured the office, wandered through the tranquil streets of Nairobi, and marveled at the urban lights transforming into something nearly enchanting. The burden of each error, deceit, and lesson learned the hard way weighed heavily upon me. Yet I smiled. As it had been for years, I was unaware until that moment I was Idris Camel. Not Prophet Idris, not my spouse, but a man no longer in search of someone else to define him. I became the author of my own tale, and that was sufficient. It took me longer than anticipated to compose that letter, even after the court triumph, severance pay, and patented invention. It seemed conclusive, as if inscribing the final word onto a tombstone marking the end of something I once believed would persist forever. One evening, as the sun set and bathed my modest dwelling in a golden hue, I extracted a sheet of substantial paper from my desk drawer and flattened it on the table. The city pulsed softly, muffled by double-glazed windows, but my environment felt tranquil, as if it had been waiting for me to complete this final task. Words emerged slowly at first. "Selina," I started. Even writing her name stirred embers I believed were extinguished. "Thank you for leaving." I paused, allowing that initial sentence to resonate, for its significance to sink into the paper. It wasn't a letter for her, not truly. It was for me. It was a door closing, a concluding verse in a melody that had lasted too long. I continued writing. "I wouldn't have been able to do any of this with your bitterness reverberating through my work. Each time you questioned me, each eye roll at my aspirations, each use of Idris the prophet as an insult, it fortified me. My silence made me learn self-reliance. Your laughter showed me not to seek validation in unwarranted places. Scribing became easier with each sentence, words growing lighter as I continued. Your silence was worth more than any support you offered. Nights spent alone, late suppers echoing through empty rooms, her distant voice whispering down the hallway, her perfume lingering in spaces she seldom occupied. These were the memories that flooded me, each one a lesson, a testament to my progress. I wished for your happiness in a world that acknowledges you only when you continue to share. In my mind, I saw her grinning beside Terk, ready with camera and hashtags, just as she always envisioned the world to see her from her most flattering perspective. At one point, I believed I was part of that frame, that we were in it together. However, I came to understand that often you're merely the man operating the camera. But my realm, it's transformed now. My world rests upon truth, coding, significant labor, and people who appreciate me beyond my capabilities. I pondered over my compact Kimau Innovations team, the young programmers who regarded me as their boss yet valued me as their mentor. I contemplated Maya, with her incisive intellect and ready wit, who critiqued my ideas without belittling them. I considered the project we were developing not Nimbus Sync, but something innovative, something that would hold significance. All that remains between us is this letter. I don't require a response. I don't seek forgiveness. I don't crave closure. I obtained all the closure I required the day you departed. I signed it plainly. Take care, Idris. I carefully folded the letter, slipping it into an envelope that felt unusually heavy. I penned her name on the front in my neatest handwriting. Then I fixed my gaze upon it for a prolonged period, as I once fixed my eyes upon her when she entered a room, wishing to hold her attention for merely a moment more. This time, there was no need for her to turn around. I handed over the letter at her lawyer's office the next day. The receptionist gave a polite smile upon receiving it, unaware of its significance. I stepped out into the Nairobi sun, feeling like a man who had just discarded a burden he had been carrying for too long. 3 days passed before my phone vibrated. Her name appeared on the screen, the same name that used to quicken my pulse. I let it ring thrice before I answered, composed and collected. "Idris," she said, her voice softer than I recalled. "Yes," I erred. I allowed the silence to linger, making her feel every second of it. "May we talk?" she asked, her voice quivering. I thought about the nights I waited for her return and the times I begged for conversation, only to be met with her turning away, scorn evident on her face, as if my words were too heavy for her to bear. I pondered on each instance where Selina had teasingly addressed me as Prophet Idris, deriding my belief in events yet to unfold. I took a deep breath and responded calmly, "I'm not angry, Selina." My voice betrayed an unexpected tranquility. Yet, curiosity no longer stirred within me. Certain bridges are designed to remain charred. She attempted to add more words, but I concluded the call. The phone lay untouched on the table, my hand steady, my heart untroubled. Gazing out the window, the sun gilded the desk's edge, and the city hummed with potential. A sense of serenity enveloped me. That evening, I treated myself to dinner at a cozy spot hidden in an alley, where the proprietor recognized my presence without need for introduction. At a secluded table, my laptop aglow, I scrutinized lines of code that resonated more like verse than labor. Maya phoned with an inquiry about the new module, her tone lively even through the static. "Can we release the update tomorrow, boss?" she asked. "Let's make it happen," I replied. "Prepared," she acknowledged. "You always instill in me the sense of creating something authentic," he responded. I ended the call, smiling, as it was indeed so. His mind wandered to Selena and the past life he had forsaken, remembering the once warm laughter that had turned chilly, the vows that had evaporated, the affection that had wilted like a forgotten flora. He had loved her profoundly, but love devoid of respect remains an injury that never fully mends. He became adept at self-healing, learned to stride without a limp. Occasionally, others inquire if he yearns for her or dwells on the life they might have enjoyed. No, he doesn't. Instead, he ponders the life he now inhabit. A smaller dwelling, indeed. Fewer memories, admittedly. Yet, there is more freedom to breathe, more potential to flourish. He reflects upon the code before him, his admired team, and the impending product launch. He considers the nights spent in peaceful slumber without the anticipation of a knock, and the silence that now soothes rather than terrifies. That day, when she mocked me, I informed her of my job loss, leaving me emotionally fractured. Yet, the shards didn't splinter. They reformed into something more robust. When she departed, I discovered my own voice. When she instigated a lawsuit, I found my own strength. When she contacted me, I unearthed my own tranquility. And when I penned that letter, I discovered my own conclusion. I'm unsure of her current whereabouts or activities. I'm indifferent about who she's sharing laughter with now. I don't need to know because this is my existence, my narrative. For the first time in a long while, I found contentment exactly where I am. My name is Idris Kamal, and this is my phase. People frequently inquire about Selena's well-being. It stems from a sense of polite interest, as if they're asking about an old friend or past love, someone who no longer impacts my daily routine, and I always respond in the same manner. I have no idea, and that's the most gratifying part, because truthfully, I don't. I no longer peruse her social media accounts. Forgo tracking hashtags and filtered images. I'm unaware of which events she's attending with her new companion or what vacations they've embarked on together. I don't know if she's changed her hair color or adopted a new style. I can't tell if her online humor is genuine or part of an ongoing act. The most satisfying aspect? I couldn't care less. I don't need to know. My self-worth no longer hinges on her. It stems from me, from the life I've constructed myself through daily effort. Each day, I rise in a humbler abode than the one we once shared, a two-bedroom flat in Kilimani, a district more notable for its appeal than its high society status. The walls are painted a soft cream that illuminates with morning light, and there's a small balcony where I enjoy my coffee and watch the city awaken. Untidy lawn absent, no gated entrances, no compulsion to maintain pretentious facades. I appreciate this simplicity. Oversized windows flood the space with a light that stirs me before my initial coffee contact. A modest bookshelf resides beside these windows, filled with novels I've yet to complete and technical manuals that I cherish beyond what I'd care to confess. A photograph of my parents on their wedding day adorns it, gracing the room with their eternal smiles. It serves as a reminder that love may not endure indefinitely, but occasionally it does. The room is strewn with cables and half-constructed hardware projects, remnants of inventions my team and I are developing. Come Out Innovations Limited has transcended its corporate shell, evolving into a compact collective of developers and engineers who believe in crafting essential items. We specialize in data encryption systems for hospitals that can't afford high-end security alternatives. Our domain extends to creating budget-friendly tech tools for schools and rural communities. We aren't amassing billions, but we're making significant impact. That sense of prosperity feels more fulfilling. Maya remains by my side, growing into a powerful force, spearheading projects, guiding interns, spotting oversights I overlook. Late nights at the office are common, with us huddled over our screens, debating superior frameworks. She has become the sister I never had, and I take immense pride in her, a feeling that catches me off guard at times. As the day ends, I close my laptop and gaze at the sunset through the window. The Nairobi sky blazes with a promise, shades of orange, pink, gold, and I contemplate the things I believed I'd lost when Selena departed. I thought I was losing my future, my dignity, my identity. Yet, standing here now, I understand that all I truly lost was an illusion, a life that never truly belonged to me. I don't pine for the drama. I don't yearn for the nights spent waiting for her return. I no longer yearn for the sensation of playing second fiddle in my own existence, nor do I long for the hollow laughter that resembled a knife's edge. Occasionally, people wonder if I would accept her back into my life if she apologized. In moments of sincerity, I contemplate this question. I recall the judge's dismissal of her claim that night in court and her voice on the phone admitting her error. Then, I consider the man I've become, a man who doesn't let someone else's mistakes dictate his identity, a man who can progress without an apology, a man who knows his value beyond the validation of others' approval. No, I would not reopen the door to her. Forgiveness isn't always returning. Sometimes it involves quietly shutting the door and walking away with no regrets. My friends occasionally remark that I've been fortunate. You got out early, they say, as if I had escaped a burning house. And perhaps they are correct, but luck was not a factor. It was my choice. Refusing to let her mirth dictate my identity, I sought my unique voice amidst the silence she departed. No more pursuit of vengeance, no more yearning for confirmation. Instead, I strive for a tranquil triumph, one that resonates as a gentle glow within, unaffected by digital validation. I'm pursuing the life with her I once envisioned, but constructing it independently, and that seems fitting. At times, I pass by Riverside Heights en route to a business engagement. I glance at the entrances, the well-tended lawns, the gleaming automobiles in the driveways. I recall the man I was when I resided there, confident that affection could be purchased with a decent job and an electric vehicle. I consider the echoes of laughter that once resonated within those walls, laughter I believed to be mutual, but was mainly for the camera's sake. I continue on my way. I don't halt. I don't look back. At my compact office adorned with jotted thoughts and unfinished schematics, I find solace rather than the cold walls of the townhouse. My staff welcomes me as a commander, not a mere stage prop. We exchange coffees, jokes that flop, occasional late-night delivery meals. It's chaotic, authentic, challenging, yet it's my domain. Her laughter shattered me. Her departure ignited me. Here, under the Nairobi twilight, with my laptop purring, my team's merriment drifting nearby, this is where my tale truly begins. Because this narrative was never about her, but rather, it has always been about me. I am Idris Kamau, not the man she dubbed Prophet Idris, yearning for a miracle. I am the architect who fashioned his own realm. In the hush that ensues, I finally attain tranquility.